Hello again, everybody. Paul Gerald with Groundhopper Soccer Guides, and today we got another fan chat video for you. A fan chat typically is where we speak to a supporter of a particular English football club about that club, their life supporting them, things to see and do if you're going to go to a game there, etc. Those previous fan chat videos are up in one of these corners of the screen. I never can remember which one, but you'll find it. Today, we're speaking with Joseph, who is a Liverpool supporter, but we're not going to really speak much about Liverpool. He will tell you where to get an excellent pie before a game at Anfield, but Joseph is a proper ground hopper, meaning that he just goes around going to games just for the experience of visiting that particular ground. And he's been to over 250 of them, including most of the clubs around London. And in fact, his specialty, if you will, is what we call non-league football. And when I say non-league, for those of you that don't know, England has a pyramid of leagues, Premier League, and then there's a few levels that are called the Football League. And beneath that, Tier 5 and down, you're talking about non-league football, even though they are in leagues like the National League, etc. They're not in the Football League or the Premier League, so they are called non-league. There's a video we put together on the guide to the leagues and cups of English soccer up in one of those corners there, where you can also find a video about promotion and relegation, which connects the whole system. Anyway, Joseph and I spent a lot of time here talking about the joys of ground hopping at non-league and lower league football grounds, basically meaning outside the Premier League, which are also great, but this video we're going to talk about non-league. By the way, this particular video, when I spoke with Joseph, it was the day that the news of the proposed European Super League broke, and we spent about 15 minutes ranting and raving about that before I finally said, and this is why we love non-league football. So after I get through talking here, and when you see Joseph talking about non-league football, just understand that in between there is about 15 minutes of heads exploding, ranting and raving about the European Super League. But within a few days, we were all over that, and I just took it out. So there you go. By the way, if you have any questions, comments, requests for future videos, put them in the comments down below. If you maybe want to come on and talk about your club, that would be awesome. Let us know there at groundhopperguides.com. And also check the description down there for links to various things that we mention in the video, apps and websites, etc. Okay, far too much introduction. Let's go meet Joseph, get the European Super League nonsense out of the way, and talk about some non-league football ground hopping instead. That's what I say.
Yeah, non-league. Even though I'm a Liverpool fan, obviously I grew up watching Liverpool. My dad introduced me to Liverpool. I live in the south of England, so it's very hard for me to get tickets. And as I'm sure you already know, it's not impossible at the moment to get Liverpool tickets, even with the crowds in the stadium.
Yep.
So I've turned to non-league football, and I found some really fulfilling experiences watching non-league teams.
What is it about non-league that you enjoy?
I enjoy the fact that you can change ends at half time, for example. You don't see that in professional football. You can walk around the pitch and change ends at half time. You can drink a beer in view of the pitch. You can have some really nice food that isn't so processed. And you just stand near the players, and you know that the players who are playing the game are normal people just like you or me. And they're not sort of celebrities, super celebrities. So it gives a sense of realism in a way.
So there were two things you mentioned there that I think a lot of, especially Americans, might not know about. The first is switching ends at halftime. I think that used to be a widespread thing in football. And now I've seen it. I saw it happen at Dulwich Hamlet. I went to a Bromley and I saw the same thing happen. So tell me about that. Like, you always want to have your team coming towards your supporters, right?
And basically, you want to be standing behind where your team is shooting towards, because that's where most of the other fans would stand. And also, you'd be able to celebrate with the players if they scored a goal. So we'd always, at half-time, walk around the ground in probably a different direction to where all the other away supporters are walking towards. And yeah, that would be a sort of ritual of non-league football in a way. It's like a ritual, because because everyone does it. Most teams do it really, unless there's segregation, and that's very rare, segregation at non-league football. Usually fans can mix and there's no animosity.
Right. Yeah, that's another thing I enjoy about non-league. But what do you get very big away crowds? I guess it just depends on the travel distance, right?
Yeah, it does depend on the travel distance. I mean, I've been to like some big non-league games on my ground hopping. Like for example, there was a huge non-league game in the FA Cup a couple of years ago. I went to Potter's Bar Town, a team in the Isthmian Premier Division, which is the 7th tier, 6 leagues below the Premier League. So it would be the 7th tier of English football. And they played a local derby against a big team, a team who used to be in the league. They played against Barnet.
Oh, yeah.
And ironically, Potter's Bar's ground is actually closer to the borough of Barnet than Barnet's ground, because Barnet play in Harrow and Wealdstone, in the borough of Harrow and Wealdstone. And I remember that game sold out. It was like 3,500 people at this game, packed like sardines into this non-league ground. And yeah, it was segregated, but that was a great game. Like, I've had so many great memories watching non-league, and going to watch these games just creates some really brilliant memories for me. And obviously I do the videos as well, so those also help me to form those memories.
Yeah, and I will, of course, link to your YouTube channel. In fact, I'll say it right now. Check the comments down below. In fact, I'll link to it.
Thank you very much.
See if I get this right. Somewhere up here, I think I'll make that happen, where one of your playlists will appear there. Yeah, so what do you do on your videos then? What, just kind of give an introduction to those.
So basically, I'm a ground hopper. So I go to different games every week. I try to visit a new ground every week. And I like to do a video. I like to show the view of the ground. If there's food, I do a burger review. So I rate the burgers. There's been some really great burgers, and there's also been some really terrible ones I've had in non-league football. I also was doing, prior to all these crowds being not allowed, I was trying to do a lot of the 92. I was halfway through the 92 actually. And I've done quite a few of the games in the 92, some really good grounds actually. I've enjoyed visits to Tottenham. I've been to like Arsenal. I've been to all of the clubs in London until obviously Wimbledon and Brentford moved out. And yeah, I've been doing a lot of videos, and also a wide range of countries. I've been to Germany, and I've also been to the Philippines for football.
Philippines, what was it like there?
I mean, that was a strange experience. I mean, it was like they have something called the like AFC Cup, which is the Asian version of the Europa League.
Okay.
And basically this team that I was watching, their name is Ceres Negros. And basically they had a game against a team from Singapore. It was like, because Asia is such a huge continent, they have like zonal finals. They split the games into zones, so to reduce travel until like the later stages. So they had like a zonal final against a team from Singapore, and this stadium was packed. But the thing was that you had to go to one of the like local malls the day before, because there's not really a football culture in the Philippines. So they were handing out tickets for free at the mall. So I got like really good seats with a great view of the pitch, and I paid absolutely nothing for these tickets.
What was the food at that ground, by the way? What did you eat that day? Any burgers?
All I remember having at the ground, they were selling like these like lemonades, these like homemade lemonades, like, because it was a really hot and humid night. Like I had about 3 or 4 of those during the match.
Okay.
But yeah, that was a great experience.
And you mentioned Germany as well. Where have you been in Germany? And by the way, is it true? I've always got the impression that a lot of English groundhoppers go to Germany because the atmosphere is great and you can drink and stand up at the games.
Yeah, they do. That's true. I mean, I've been to like a few of the Bundesliga grounds, and you can drink, you can smoke in the stadium as well. So you see clouds of smoke all over the stadium. Because I went to Stuttgart for this one game, and I remember this guy just kept blowing his smoke from a cigarette into the people in front. And then when there was this one like really bad decision, this dude threw his beer all the way down the road, and like he got the most dirtiest looks I've seen for a while. Like people were staring him down after that. So yeah, you have a freedom of like sort of drinking and smoking during the game. And yeah, so a lot of people like that sort of unrestrictedness, because like English football used to be a lot more like relaxed prior to obviously the events in the 80s and the 90s and all the reforms with all the seated stadiums. So yeah, I think people go to Germany because of that.
Yeah. And so your experience matched up with that. Like you enjoyed Germany?
Yeah, I loved it. Like it's like you can get games on every day of the weekend. Like you can go to a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and a Monday game easily. If you just look at the fixtures, it's pretty easy to find games every day.
And traveling around there, I assume the trains run well and everything. I mean, it's Germany after all. You'd expect it to be efficient, you know.
I mean, the great thing about Germany is like if you go to a Bundesliga game, I think Brighton and Hove Albion do this as well. If you buy a ticket to Brighton and Hove Albion, you have free travel from certain stations
Oh,
in Sussex. So, like for example, when I went to Brighton v West Brom in the FA Cup, I bought a train ticket to Haywards Heath because from Haywards Heath, your ticket is free. It is included in the ticket price. Not a
oh,
lot of Premier League clubs do that because I think that was a thing to do with the stadium being in Falmer, and they had to like reduce
sure.
all the car traffic. But like with Germany, you get like free travel in the entire region that the club is in for 24 hours before and after the game. So that's a great thing, and I think a lot of English clubs should do that. It would really help me save on train fares.
I wonder if some of that has to do with, I noticed that going back to the European Super League thing, the German clubs are not really on board with it because those clubs are fan owned. I mean, not entirely, but I think the commercial interest can only be 49%. So it's probably a different culture in Germany for that reason because the fans actually own the clubs.
Yeah, exactly. Fans are taken more seriously in Germany
Yeah.
than in England, so they have an actual say in matters. Rather than England, they're just there to be supporters of the club.
Yeah.
So they really do have a say, and I do think that's why they're more opposed. They're more likely to be opposed to the European Super League reforms.
Yeah. So let's talk about food then. What are some of the best burgers in non-league?
Oh, I mean, I've only ranked obviously I do like a number system out of 10, and the only place I've ever ranked a 10 out of 10 was at Binfield, and I watched them in an FA Cup. I think it was second qualifying round or first qualifying round, very early qualifying round. And it was the quickest goal scored in the FA Cup this season after 10 seconds.
Wow.
I videoed it, and like the FA actually tweeted my video out.
Wow.
So it was scored by a guy for Binfield, and they were playing a team in the league above, but Binfield ended up winning 5-1 against this team.
Wow.
So like I love watching the early non-league rounds of the FA Cup, but yeah, the food at Binfield, which is a little sort of village near to Windsor and Maidenhead. Windsor's to the west of London,
Yep.
where the Queen lives. So basically, mostly known for where the Queen lives. I come from Slough myself, which is also in Berkshire to the west of London, and that's famous for The Office made by Ricky Gervais.
Okay.
That was shot in Slough. There's not much to do in Slough, but yeah, like I watched that game at a really small ground in a small village, and that was brilliant food. Brilliant food.
What did they have, and why is the food so good at Benfield? What's going on there?
I don't know what it is, but I was told by one of my people I've met at football, one of the people I've met at football and I follow on Twitter, I was told that the food at Binfield was really good. And obviously now I drive, I have more of a chance to visit these sort of rural grounds. So yeah, like to have the chance to watch them in an FA Cup match and to taste the food was just brilliant, and I loved it. It was a great ground. I mean, it's out in the sticks, yeah, but I would just travel there again just for the food.
I'm always shocked how bad the food is at some of the Premier League grounds, especially. Like with all that money, you can't come up with something better than a puck of pie. I mean, come on. What?
I've had some of the pies at the Premier League grounds are okay, well, decent. I've had that West Brom do a really good pie, a chicken balti pie or something like that.
Yeah.
I heard about that. So like I've been to West Brom, but I didn't get the opportunity to try the food there. So maybe if I ever go again, I'll try the food, definitely.
I just remember being disappointed. I enjoyed my day at Barnsley, but I had read that Barnsley were famous for goose pies. And I showed up and there's a market right next to the station in Barnsley and they had goose pies in there. And I was like, oh, this is going to be great. And I went over to the stadium and they had pucka pies in a case that looked like they were made a week ago. And I thought, come on, Barnsley. I mean, what? Go down to the market and buy some pies, you know?
Exactly.
It's one thing in the States, by the way. I've spoken to a lot of English people who've been to games over here, not just MLS, but other sports. They're always one thing that I think we're pretty good at. We have comfortable stadiums with good food.
Yeah, I've seen some of the stadiums and they look brilliant to visit. I mean, I'd love to go for the 2026 World Cup. Like, that's a bucket list item for me, to go travel around the States
Yeah.
and watch the game. So yeah, I've seen some of the facilities that you guys play at, and sometimes I'm a bit jealous of the sort of stadiums that you watch your football
at. Well, I'm jealous of some of the stadiums you get to go to as well. So what are some of your your favorite, I should say, non-league grounds then?
Oh, it's tough. I mean, there are a lot. There's a team, the team that I told you about in the National League South, but they now play in the National League. They got promoted. A team called Maidenhead United. They play at the oldest continually used piece of grass, right? So basically this pitch has been used for the longest time in the world. There's like an entire plaque and everything at the ground. Since 1871, they were there in the original FA Cup. They played in the original FA Cup. I think they reached the quarterfinals or something like that. But that's a brilliant ground. I mean, anyone who likes football, anyone who enjoys visiting grounds, York Road in Maidenhead is one I definitely recommend visiting. And I mean, when I say it's close to the station, you literally get out of the train and you literally cross the road, you walk down the street and you're there at the stadium. Literally, it's a brilliant stadium. That's one I definitely recommend visiting in non-league.
And yeah, where for us Americans who don't know our geography, so where is Maidenhead?
So Maidenhead is a town in Berkshire, the same county as I'm from. It's to the west of London, and yeah, it's really nice, a really nice town. It's on the River Thames, and a fun fact about Maidenhead is the MP is actually Theresa May, the former Prime Minister of the UK.
Okay.
Don't get many grounds like that in England. And I mean, it's a beautiful ground. It's got terracing all around. It's got a brilliant main stand. It was voted like the best main stand that had been built when it was built, I think in like 2014 or something like that. Wow. And yeah, it's a must visit for people who love like old grounds and sort of history.
Okay. What's next on your list? It sounds like you're going to games now. So like we're speaking on a Sunday. So where are you off to next week? Do you have a place?
I think I'm going to do a couple of games this midweek. I'm not entirely sure where, but I use there's like a tool that the FA provides. It's called FA Full Time. It's like a list of fixtures for each league. Okay. Because we can only watch football in the 11th tier of English football and below. So 10 leagues below the Premier League at a level called grassroots football. It really restricts us where we can go, because I don't really want to watch football in just a park. A park with nothing on it doesn't count for me. Yeah. So it needs to be somewhere with like some sort of facility or some purpose-built football pitch or ground or whatever. So it takes time to really research these grounds, because there's not much information on these grounds on like apps like Futbology. I mean, Futbology goes down to a certain level, which is the 10th tier. And then once you get past that, there's very little information.
What do you count as a ground when you go and visit? Like, people will ask how many grounds you've been to, but is Sunday League doesn't count. So like you said, you need some kind of structure. For me, I need a physical structure that has the name of the club on it and preferably a turnstile. Something that tells me I've entered a football ground. So.
Well, I need like something like a rail around the pitch, so like something for spectators or a stand. And that's all I really need to count it as a ground. I mean, some people count just park pitches, like it's their hobby and their choice. But for me, there's many more grounds that are worth visiting in this country, because there's thousands of teams all up and down the leagues who have like great grounds to visit. So what is the use of me just going to a park pitch when I can visit these better grounds?
Yeah. So how many grounds have you been to?
So as of recording this video, I've currently done 254 grounds.
Okay. And how long? Like, when did you start counting grounds? What was your first one?
Well, my first ground was in the Conference Premier, or what is now known as the National League. My first ever game was at a team called Rushden and Diamonds.
I love
they used to be in the Football League, actually. They're from Northamptonshire, which is just north of just north of like where Luton is. It's the county north of Bedfordshire.
Okay.
I believe so. I remember my relative took me to a game. My auntie took me for a game as a birthday treat. And I thought, oh yeah, it was a great game. And that was when like my love for live football started. It was a game against Wrexham and it finished 2-2. And this team actually folded 2 games after I watched them due to like financial difficulties. I think in the past they used to be invested by the owner of Doc Martens, you know, the shoes.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, the shoes Doc Martens. Yeah, they used to be owned by the guy who owned that company. So they were up in the big leagues. They used to be a small team, but they invested heavily into the ground and stuff. It's a proper, like a nice stadium, got up into the Football League, then got relegated back down to non-league and then went bust. And now they have a Phoenix club who play like a couple of levels below them.
Are they still on the same ground?
The original club was.
Are they in the original Rushden Diamonds ground?
No, that ground got demolished like a couple of years. So the next year, like another local team from Northamptonshire used it.
Okay.
And then they just demolished it because I think there was a lot of like financial troubles with the ground. I'm not entirely sure what happened to it, but
Okay.
yeah, they were like, that was a good ground to visit. And I mean, it's a shame it's gone.
Yeah. Where, what year was that?
2011. Yeah, 2011.
So you've been to 250 odd grounds.
It was like my 10-year anniversary of my first game.
Okay, so you've made 250 some odd grounds in 10 years. Is that?
Yeah.
You get to about 25 a year, is about an average?
I didn't actually start seriously ground hopping until about the 2017 to 18 season. And at that time, I only had about like 42 grounds or something like that. Some small number like that. Well, for me, it's small, but for people who don't go to football, that's quite a big number.
Yeah.
But yeah, I used to only go to like the odd game or two a season. And then I started watching Maidenhead and following local football in my area. And then I started towards the end of like the 2016-17 season, I started discovering the art of ground hopping. And then ever since then, I've been a full-time ground hopper.
Okay. And typical, okay, we'll just say in non-COVID times, right? When things are normal and the season is rolling, you get to a game or two every week. How do you approach this schedule, and how do you pick a ground to go to, and how do you do your research?
So I use like a lot of sort of ways of information to find out about the grounds, and I use like apps like the Futbology App, which is you can just tick off your football grounds visited, and I use fixture lists and stuff to make up a list. Like I would say on a normal season, I would visit about 60 to 70 new grounds. But like, in all honesty, for me, it's just about my enjoyment. Like, I'm not all about numbers at the end of the day. Like it gets a bit tedious, really, when you keep watching football every single day. Like there's something special about going to football on a Saturday. And if you constantly go to football every single day, that shine just gets taken off. And I found that recently with the fact that I go to games, like 2 games in midweek, the shine of football has sort of worn off a little bit. Like there's only so much I can take in football terms before I just need to say, hey, let's take a break. Let's not go to so many games. But like at the same time, the sort of like, I don't know, I would be classed as maybe an anorak. The anorak in me, someone who is very obsessed with football, also loves ticking off new grounds. Yep. So it's sort of like a balancing act of enjoying the game, but also getting some decent numbers up.
Right. Like I once was in Nottingham, and Forest were home to Leeds in the FA Cup. And I think I had a ticket, but then I got sick, and I had been to games like the previous 4 nights. And I just thought, you know what? I just can't do it. I'm just exhausted. I've had enough. And I went to bed early, and I woke up the next day, and it had finished 3-2 with 6,000 Leeds supporters visiting. And I thought, see, I finally skip a game, and I miss, like, everybody was talking about it the next day. So that's what haunts me, is like, I can't just go skipping games. But you're right. You can turn it into a job sometimes, and then it's not fun. So.
Yeah, I mean, that's like something we call in England sod's law. When when you end up missing a game and it ends up being an absolute thriller.
You're right. Sod's Law?
Yeah, Sod's Law is like, it's hard to explain what Sod's Law is, but basically Sod's Law is like, it's like likely to happen. So like, for example, you plan like a summer holiday, right? And it's been sunny all the time you've been planning. But once you end up going to this holiday, it ends up raining every day, and that's Sod's Law.
Okay. So when you're going to go to a ground maybe that you've never been to, I'm just curious, first of all, how do you pick them? And also, there's obvious basic things like how to get there and get a ticket and all that stuff. But I mean, what else do you want to know about a ground as you're planning your trip?
Like, I obviously want to have a rough idea of the facilities that I'm going to visit, because sometimes if like all of non-league is on, like it used to be, I would pick grounds because they were better grounds than other ones. So I'd do a bit of research online, have a look at a few photos that have been taken at the grounds. Like there's some really good blogs online, which helped me to find out grounds. Like for example, a guy called Russell Cox, his name is the Wycombe Wanderer he makes a blog, and he's been to so many more grounds than me. And I sometimes use that as a reference point for me to visit grounds.
Yep.
So yeah, there's just a wide range of things. I use fixture lists, blogs, photos, and yeah, it just helps me to form a sort of picture of where I want to go and what grounds I want to tick off.
Okay. And then of course you look into the food.
Yeah, it would be preferable to visit grounds with hot food. I mean, recently, since grassroots football was returned, it's such a low level that it's very rare to get food.
Yeah.
I mean, luckily I had food on Saturday at one of the games that I visited. But yeah, it's like very rare to get food at the lower level of English football. So I prefer to go to a higher ground usually.
Sure.
And you get some decent food.
So where else have you had good food then? What was I know you mentioned Benfield. Is there another burger that comes to mind? Because we all love burgers.
So. There was a team, it's like, again, a very low team. They play in the 11th tier of English football, 10 leagues below the Premier League. A team called Worcester Park, based in the southwest of London, a bit near Wimbledon, around that area, sort of. And they played at a ground. It's shared with like a cricket, so it had like a cricket pitch. So it had like a couple of sides of railing and a small little stand. But this burger, right, was like, it was incredible. And B, it was like so cheap. I paid like £1.50 for this burger. Like, that's like, considering some of the prices you pay at not the Premier League for burgers and stuff, for food. I mean, you pay an arm and a leg. You have to take out a second mortgage for some of these food prices in the Premier League. But to pay £1.50 for a burger, which is of incredible quality, like, I'll always remember that.
Yeah. I'm always horrified by the trucks that pull up outside the stadiums. I mean, those burgers are terrible. So it's a disgrace, you know.
I mean, it's like, for example, like if you go to Anfield, right? Like some of these, I wouldn't eat at any of these food trucks personally. Like I'd recommend, like there's a Chinese shop outside Anfield, like a Chinese takeaway. I think it's like near the main stand or something. I'm not entirely sure. I think it's outside the Cop maybe, or the main stand. And yeah, they do some really good food. Like that's a well-renowned place to eat food. There's a community cafe outside the ground as well. It's called Home Baked. And they do some really good pies there, like really top quality pies. And a lot of the proceeds of their sales goes towards community initiatives. So they have their best-selling pie is called the Shankly pie, named after legendary Liverpool manager Bill Shankly.
Sure.
And yeah, my dad had that the last time we visited, and he said it was an absolutely brilliant pie. So sometimes it's better to support these local. If you're going to like a bigger game, it's better to support local brick and mortar businesses rather than these food trucks that just pull up and you're just there for the game.
Right. Okay, so when we all come to Maidenhead, where should we go?
Like I would say if you come to Maidenhead, you have to go to Windsor as well. You have to see the castle. I mean, obviously recently with the death of the Duke of Edinburgh, Windsor's been like a frenzy, like so many media cars and everything, so many mourners passing by. But just for the history itself, you go to Windsor. You can If you go to Maidenhead, there's some great restaurants by the Thames to dine in. There's a small little village called Bray, which is between Maidenhead and Windsor, I believe. And that is one of the most, like, if you've got an expensive taste for food, let's just say, it's got like two or three of the 5-star Michelin restaurants in this country.
Wow.
Like, it's a tiny village, but it's got so many like Michelin star restaurants. It's like a proper like posh place.
Okay.
But I'm not sure that a lot of people really enjoy going to these like Michelin star restaurants. So
some people do.
But there's a wide range of places to visit in Berkshire, like with Maidenhead and Windsor.
What about for food or maybe a nice pub around the ground? Like, where are the supporters going to be in a traditional gathering spot somewhere?
I mean, I haven't watched Maidenhead in a long time, and I haven't like had a drink, obviously in Maidenhead, because I haven't watched them for a while. But there's like the bar in the ground, the pub in the ground is actually really good. I've heard a lot of good things about it. I mean, I've been in there obviously, but they sell stuff like real ales, which are locally brewed, like these beers and these ales, which are locally brewed in Marlow, a town next to Maidenhead. So yeah, they have some great beers to sample, and also the food bar within the actual ground itself. They do some good food as well.
Yeah, you mentioned about bars at the clubs. This is one of my favorite things about the non-league clubs is that there's usually a little bar or cafe or something there in the main stand usually. And, you know, sometimes there's only 100 people in there and half of them at least all know each other. It's just such a nice community feeling. And if it's not a derby, maybe there's some of the away fans are welcome in there because, you know, we're all people and we're all football supporters, and let's have something to eat and a cup of tea or something and then go watch the game together. You just don't get that at the big clubs. You know?
Yeah, I agree in a way that is definitely true. Because non-league football provides like a sense of community in a way with all these like bars which are run by the clubs for the benefit of the clubs, and yeah, you do get to meet some nice people.
Yeah. So maybe if these if the big six run off to Europe, you know, maybe the rest of us can just remember that it's supposed to be about community and about clubs, not businesses, and just going down and switching sides at halftime and looking for good burgers and having fun. Like that's what I enjoy about football. So.
Yeah, I have to agree with that for sure.
Yeah. So any sort of closing thoughts, any other particular grounds that you, especially like in the London area, that you just think are terrific and people ought to go see?
Obviously, as you said, Dulwich Hamlet's a really nice ground.
I've been there, yeah.
As well, I'd have to say probably, obviously, you got the lower league teams. If you can't count the lower league teams, I enjoyed my visit to Leyton Orient. I mean, I went there the first competitive game after their manager died.
Oh boy!
Because their manager tragically passed away. I watched his last ever game in charge, which was like an FA Trophy final at Wembley, and then I was there for the first competitive game after he passed away. Sadly, his name was Justin Edinburgh, and he led them to promotion the year before from non-league back into the League Two. And yeah, that was a sad, like somber atmosphere, but it was an enjoyable ground to visit. There's loads of really good grounds. I've done so many grounds in London. It's like really hard to pinpoint just one. I'd recommend visiting. Maybe a place called Wingate and Finchley, which is in the Isthmian League Premier Division. One league's in the 7th tier of English football, so 6 leagues below the Premier League. That's in North London. And yeah, that's got one of the most unique looking stands I've seen at football. It's like Art Deco. It's sort of like an Art Deco style, which is really nice. Okay. But yeah, there's like so many. If you look on like these non-league forums or these fixture lists, you'll find so many great grounds in London to visit.
I really like to use the London Football Guide. I've actually had him. We just did an email interview, but I have a blog post where I interviewed him about some of his favorite things.
Another one I'd actually recommend is a team called Fisher Athletic. So their ground, I believe, is used by the Millwall females team, the women's team, but their ground has a view of Canary Wharf. in the
Oh,
background. So you see all these like huge skyscrapers. It's like not the most remarkable ground in terms of actual facilities itself. It's like a really new build with an artificial pitch and
ah,
just like a couple of small stands. But the view alone is like really nice because you see all of the skyscrapers in Canary Wharf.
oh, okay. You know, the other thing about the London Football Guide that's nice about that site is it doesn't just describe the grounds, but like for my money, it's worth picking. You know, if I'm looking at 8 non-league grounds where I might go to a game, like what that website will tell you is which one of them is likely to have the biggest crowd that day, or is that team is on a really good run of form and they're challenging for promotion and this is a big game. You know, like which game will be the biggest event. There's something to be said for going to an ordinary day at a ground and everything else, but if you can get there, you know, I happened to go to Dulwich Hamlet at their first game back at Champion Hill after a year and a half or something, so it was packed, you know, 3,500 people, very festive, and everybody was having a good time. You know, I went all the way to Grimsby Town just because they were playing Scunthorpe United. I mean, you know, if you're going to go, pick the one that's going to be full and fun, and you need to know that. So,
I think that game, Grimsby v Scunthorpe United, that was in December, right? That was
that's
in the
right.
December, if I'm correct. I was at that game actually. I was I think I've seen your photos on your like on your website, and you were
Yeah.
sitting in that big main stand, but I was sitting in like the corner near the away fans because
Oh,
like that was the only other place than the big main stand that didn't have an obstructed view.
oh yeah,
So that's why I
yeah. I
picked
had
you.
I had a post right in front of me.
But that's what you love about some of these grounds. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm all for big new modern builds, but sometimes you can't beat the character of these like older grounds.
Yep. Yeah.
If we're going to talk about posts at games blocking your view, you can't. There's no other ground you can mention but Luton. There is no
Oh
way
my
you can
gosh.
mention another ground but Luton. I mean, I saw your photo and you were sitting behind a pylon, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Behind the floodlight pylon. I had about I was standing in the corner, right? When they got promoted from League One, I watched them play a team called Rochdale in League One. And basically I was right in the corner of the stadium. And like everyone was standing in this corner because it was like the quote unquote singing section of the ground, as Americans would say, and like it was like cramped terraces, bolted on with like these like seats that had absolutely no leg room, no knee room. You were kneeing the other person's back if you were sitting down, and I had about 3 posts. I couldn't see like a huge portion of the pitch. Like sometimes classic grounds are great, but sometimes also they provide a bit of like it's sort of an inconvenience. It's a shame when there's all these supporting posts in front of you that
Yeah.
ruin your view in a
Yeah.
way.
There's a delicate balance between character and a place being a dump. And I think Kenilworth Road kind of crosses the line into being a dump. But, you know, compared to, I don't want to name anybody, but let's just say hypothetically, Reading, for example, I'd rather go to a game at Luton than at Reading.
Reading is my local like football league team.
Yep.
Obviously it's the biggest team in Berkshire. I mean, that's you've got to go to the station, you got to get on a bus that takes you miles out of the city centre,
Yeah.
and you're at this like ground, and it's just like a facility. It's like just a complex, and it's soulless, completely soulless once you
Yep.
step into Reading's ground. I mean, it didn't help the fact that I went for a 0-0, a really boring game against Sheffield Wednesday in the Championship a few seasons ago.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
I'd rather a ground with character like Luton than a ground like Reading.
Yeah. That's what one thing we really do in my business is I try to tell people there are certain grounds that you need to get to. I went out of my way to send people to Griffin Park because I knew it was closing. And I said, look, you got to go to this place. And one of my regrets now is I didn't make it to York City before they moved out of Bootham Crescent. But you know, I'm sure that Brentford has built a nice new stadium and I can't wait to go see it. But yeah, I mean, these old grounds, you got to get there while you can, you know?
Yeah, it's not going to be saying this new community stadium. Whilst it's a good stadium in stadium terms, like with facilities and everything, it's not going to have the same character of Griffin Park. I mean,
No.
I also live like very close to Griffin Park as well, so I had the opportunity to visit for a couple of times in like 2013. Hadn't been back since, but yeah, I'm glad I had the opportunity to watch them play.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, when I get over there, I plan to live over there and start in October. Maybe not full time, but like through the rest of the season. And so we'll get to a game. You can.
Hope so, mate. It would be a pleasure. It'd be an absolute pleasure, mate.
Well, thanks for coming on. I'll make sure and link people to your YouTube channel as well. You got a blog or anything else that we can refer to? Or are you on Twitter or any other social media?
Yeah, so I only have like a Twitter other than my main YouTube channel. The app is Groundhopping FC. So basically the same as my YouTube channel, just all one word, obviously, because you can't space out in Twitter. So
yeah.
So yeah.
So you're at Groundhopping FC.
I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, you betcha. All right. Well, thanks for coming on.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.